Okay, we're going to be talking about solving systems of equations by elimination. So down the left side of my paper, I went ahead and wrote out our steps. So as we talk about them, you can pause the video and write down what you need to. So the goal for this is to have one variable eliminated by getting it to have opposite, so that's our key word, opposite coefficients and adding the two equations. So if they have opposite coefficients, one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So for example, if we have 6x plus 4y equals 12, and that's our first equation, if we want our two equations to have opposite coefficients, if we have positive 6x, our opposite coefficient would be a negative 6x. And I'm just making one up as we go. And that is our second equation. And then once you have opposite coefficients, you are going to add the two equations. 6x minus 6x is going to give you 0. So those are going to cancel. 4y minus 18, negative 14y. 12 plus 3, 15. Then you're going to go through and solve like you normally do and divide both sides by negative 14. So y is going to be negative 15 over 14. Okay, so our goal is to get opposite coefficients. So you can add them together and they eliminate one another. Okay, so now we have our how. We're going to multiply one or both equations by different numbers so that one of the variables has coefficients that are opposites. Which right here, I just made one up that they already have opposites, but you're going to have ones that you have to multiply to get opposites. Once you have opposites, then you're going to add the equations together. Okay, so at this point, you're either going to get y equals a number or x equals a number. When you get either y equals a number or x equals a number, that means you're going to have one solution. If you have something that's false, like 0 equals 4, that's going to be no solution. If you get something that's true, like 0 equals 0, you're going to have an infinite number of solutions. Okay, so let's say we have one solution and we get y equals a number. To get the second value, we're going to sub it back into the original equation, one of the original equations. Okay? So we're going to go back up here and follow our steps. And I'm going to write an example off to the side. So let's say we have negative 2x plus 4y equals 2. And that is our first equation. And we have negative 7x plus 5y equals 16. And that is our second equation. So we have two equations. So one thing you have to remember, we get to choose which variable to eliminate. Okay, so just remember that. So we can eliminate the x's or the y's. So in our example, we're going to choose the y. Okay, so now this is where we're going to multiply one or both equations by different numbers. So if we're going to eliminate the y, we have to eliminate 4y and 5y. So we have to find their common multiple, which let's do 20, and they have to be opposite, so one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So let's take our first equation, and we're going to multiply that. To get negative 20, we have to multiply it by negative 5. And you multiply the whole equation by negative 5. So we have negative 2x times negative 5 is 10x. We have 4y times negative 5 is negative 20y. And that equals 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Okay. So our second equation, if this is negative 20y, we want this piece to be positive 20y, so they will eliminate each other. So we have to multiply this equation by 4. Negative 7x times 4 is negative 28x. 5y times 4 is 20y. And that's going to equal 16 times 4, which is 64. Okay, so now that we have our opposite coefficients, which this is what we wanted, coefficients that are opposites, then we're going to add our two equations. So we're going to add these. So we have 10x plus a negative 28x, which is negative 18x. Your negative 20y plus 20y are going to cancel. And that's going to equal negative 10 plus 64 is 54. Now we're going to solve for x. We're going to divide both sides by negative 18. We're going to have x equals negative 3. Okay. So at this point we got x equals a number, so we know we have one solution. So it's going to look something like this. We're going to have two numbers. So down here it says to get the second value, we're going to sub it back into one of the original equations. So we're going to take this value, we're going to bring it down here, and let's plug it into equation 1. Okay, so the original equation 1 was negative 2x, but our x is now negative 3. Plus 4y equals 2. So that was the original back up here. Okay, so all we did was plug negative 3 in for x. Now we're going to solve for y. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. We have plus 4y equals 2. Now we have to subtract 6 from both sides. We're left with 4y equals 2 minus 6, so negative 4. Our last step is to divide both sides by 4. So our y is going to be negative 1. So now that we have our x and our y, we're going to put them together in our solution. Negative 3, negative 1. Okay, so we just followed all the steps on the left side of your paper. Okay. So now, we're going to look at how we decide what we multiply by. So our first equation, or our first set of equations. We have, our first one is 2m plus 4n equals 10. The second one is 3m plus 15n equals 11. So let's look at how we're going to eliminate the n's. Okay? So our common multiple, let's go with 6. That'd probably be easiest. So our first equation, let's make the first one positive 6. So if we want to make 2 a positive 6, we have to multiply the whole thing by positive 3. So we have 2m times 3 is 6m. 4n times 3 is 12n. And that's going to equal 10 times 3, which is 30. So now, if we want the negative 3, or the positive 3 to be a negative 6, to eliminate it, for 3 to be negative 6, we have to multiply the whole thing by negative 2. So our second equation, we're multiplying the whole thing by negative 2. So we have 3m times negative 2 is negative 6m. 15n times negative 2 is negative 30n. We have 11 times negative 2 is negative 22. So now that we have opposite coefficients, we can add them together, and those are going to cancel. Okay, so that's how we would eliminate the m. So now let's go over here. We want to eliminate the n. So we have to find a common multiple of 4 and 15. So let's go with 60. And this time, let's make the top one negative 60. So if we want 4 to be negative 60, we have to multiply the first equation by negative 15. Negative 15 times 4 is going to give you negative 60. So negative 15 times 2m is going to be negative 30m. Negative 15 times 4n is going to be negative 60n. And that's going to equal negative 15 times 10 is negative 150. So our second equation, if we want these two to be opposite coefficients, this is negative 60, so we want this one to be positive 60. So for 15 to be positive 60, we have to multiply the whole equation by 4. So you have 4 times 3m is 12m. We have 4 times 15n is positive 60n, and that's going to equal 4 times 11, which is 44. So now that these are opposite coefficients, we're just going to add the two equations together, and these will eliminate each other. So that's how we eliminate the n. Okay, so let's go down here and do one more example like that. So what are we going to multiply by? So let's look at what we're going to do if we want to eliminate the x. So these are our two x's. A common multiple of 5 and 2 would be 10. So let's change them to 10. Let's keep the 5 positive and the 2 negative since it's already negative. So to make this a positive 10, we have to multiply it by 2. So the whole first equation we're going to multiply by 2. 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times negative 6y is negative 12y. And that's going to equal 2 times negative 19, which is negative 38. Okay, so if this is positive 10, our second equation we want it to be negative 10. So we want it to be the opposite. So for negative 2 to be negative 10, we have to multiply the whole thing by 5. 5 times negative 2, negative 10x. 5 times 3y is 15y. 5 times 0 is 0. Now that these are opposite coefficients, we can just add the two equations together, and that will eliminate the x. 10x plus negative 10x will be 0. Okay, so let's eliminate the y now. Okay, so the y's. We have negative 6y and 3y. Our common multiple, let's go with 6. That will be the easiest. This is already negative 6, so let's keep it as negative 6. So this one, the first equation, we're not going to multiply anything. We're going to keep it as is. So we're going to keep it as 5x minus 6y equals negative 19. If this is negative 6x, we want this to be a positive, negative 6y. We want this to be a positive 6y. So 3y times 2 is going to be a positive 6y. So we have to multiply the whole equation by 2. 2 times negative 2x So negative 4x. 3y times 2 is positive 6y. That's going to equal 2 times 0 is 0. Now that these are opposite coefficients, I'm just going to add them together. Negative 6y plus 6y is 0. So the y's are going to eliminate. Okay? So let's go ahead and do one more example together. Okay. So these are our two equations we're going to work with. So let's make a little note to the side. We can start by clearing the fractions. So that's the first thing we want to do. So for the first equation, what would I multiply by to cancel the denominators of 2 and 3? So the first equation, our denominators, is 2 and 3. We want to multiply something to cancel those two denominators out. So what you're going to do is find their least common multiple. Okay? So our first denominator is 2. What are the multiples of 2? We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, on and on. Our second denominator is 3. Our multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, on and on. So what would our least common multiple be? It would be 6. So since that is our least common multiple, we're going to multiply both of our fractions in the first equation by 6. So off to the side, let's take our first fraction, which is 1/2. We're going to have 1/2 times 6, which is 6 over 1. These can cross reduce. So we have 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times 1 is 1, and that is just 3. So down here, we can rewrite our first equation as 3x. We changed 1/2 to 3. Now we have to change our 2/3. So we're going to have 2/3 times our least common multiple, which we said was 6. So we'll multiply straight across. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So back to rewriting our equation, we have 3x. We just changed 2/3 to 4. So we have plus 4y. It's going to equal, if we multiplied these two by 6, we have to multiply this whole thing by 6. So 1 times 6 is 6. So that is our first equation. Now we have to get rid of the fractions in the second equation. So for equation number 2, our first denominator is 4. Let's find the multiples of 4. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, on and on. Our second denominator is 3. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, on and on. Our least common multiple is 12. So we are going to multiply both fractions in equation number 2 by 12. our first fraction is 3/4. So we have 3/4 times 12 over 1. If you multiply straight across, 3 times 12 is 36. 4 times 1 is 4. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So we can change our x part. We change 3/4 to 9. So we have 9x. So now let's change our y. We have 1/3. So we have 1/3 times 12 over 1. 1 times 12 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So now we have minus. We just changed 1/3 to 4. So we have 4y. And that's going to equal, if we multiplied these two by 12, we have to multiply this by 12. So 2 times 12 is 24. Okay, so we got rid of the fractions. That was our first step. Okay, so now we have to eliminate something. I think I'm going to choose to eliminate the y's because we have opposite coefficients already. We have positive 4y and negative 4y. So let's just go ahead and add these two. 3x plus 9x is 12x. 4y minus 4y is 0. So that's going to equal 6 plus 24 is 30. Now let's go ahead and solve for x. So divide both sides by 12. So x is 30 over 12, which can be simplified. If you divide both by 6, 30 divided by 6 is 5. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So our x is 5/2. Now to find y, we have to go back. And we're going to sub our x into equation number 1. So from the very beginning, equation number 1 is 1/2 x plus 2/3 y equals 1. And now we know what x is. So we have 1/2 times our x, which is 5/2, plus 2/3 y equals 1. Okay, so let's multiply our fractions. We have 1 times 5 is 5, 2 times 2 is 4, so we have 5/4, and we still have plus 2/3 y equals 1. Okay, so now we want to get rid of our fractions again. We're going to clear them out. So we have to find least common multiple of the denominators. So first denominator is 4. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, on and on. So multiples of 4. Second denominator is 3. We have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, on and on. So our least common multiple is 12. So to get rid of these fractions, to clear it out, we're going to multiply this whole thing by 12. Okay, so off to the side, I'm going to take this piece times 12. We have 5/4 times 12 over 1. Okay, so you can cross reduce. 4 goes into 12. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So we have 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 1 is 1. So we change this to 15. So now we have 15 plus we now have to multiply 12 by 2/3. So we have 12 over 1 times 2/3. Again, we can cross reduce. 4 times 2 is 8, over 1 times 1 is 1, which is just 8. 8 over 1 is just 8. So we change this 2/3 to 8. So now we have plus 8y equals 12 times 1 is 12. So now all we're going to do is solve. So subtract 15 from both sides. So you have 8y equals 12 minus 15, it's -3. Our last step is to divide both sides by 8. So we have y equals -3/8. We cannot reduce that anymore. So our final answer, our one solution, is going to be our x, which is 5/2, and our y, which is -3/8. And that is your solution.